We have a clear, godly, biblical vision statement. It's going to begin to define what we do and what we don't do. And so often churches are going off in 50 different directions, but they're never really headed anywhere in particular. And by the way, where does the vision come from? Is the vision something that Tom makes up, the leadership team makes up, or something that churches have been doing a long time? No, this vision has to come from God. If it's not God's vision, then it's not the vision we should have for the church at New Song. And we need to get rid of it. The vision is God's, and it should never, ever change. We have purpose. So in this vision, we have a purpose. Where purpose is moving towards that vision. And in that vision and purpose, we need to have values, and those values should be found in the Word of God. And they all drive us to accomplish the vision. Now here's the last concept, and that's called strategy. Now strategy are those plans that we make that will enable us to move and march towards this vision. And yet, and those are man-made, by the way. Strategies. They're man-made. They can come and go. It depends. We look at our strategy. Does it move us towards a vision? If it doesn't, let's change the strategy. But why is it that people like to hold on to the strategy more than they want to the godly vision? Because unfortunately, their vision is their own selfishness. And that's not godly. So, what do we do? Okay, is this whole vision concept, is it biblical? Well, yes it is. There's vision after vision after vision, and people marching towards that vision. And so I'm going to begin with a guy by the name of Nehemiah. He's found in the Old Testament, got a book after his name. It's found right after Ezra and just before Esther, if that helps you out any. All right, I want to talk about Nehemiah. Nehemiah was what we call one of the folks who had been removed from Jerusalem when it was destroyed, and when the Israelites went into captivity. He went with them. This was a common practice of conquering nations, is that they would export the people from that nation, take them to their own. And Nehemiah was one of these guys that was in what we call captivity. Well, while he was there, he was serving the king. And while he was serving the king, he found out word about his city, Jerusalem, in which the temple was being rebuilt. And this is all according to God's plan. But he found out the city lay in ruins. The wall was crumbled down. And really, God was not looking well, Jehovah God, in light of his city. It lay in ruins. And in Nehemiah chapter 1, it says one of the first things he did was he just cried. He looked and he saw the city of Jerusalem, it would lie in ruins, and he wept, it says. And he prayed and he fasted before the God of heaven. And then he has this long prayer here, basically to say, how can we restore, God, your city to its original glory? And he apologizes for the sins of the people. And then he moves into chapter 2. And God has given him this vision of rebuilding the city's walls. And so, he goes to the king. And he comes before the king, and as he looks at the king, his face is sad, and the king doesn't understand it, because all the times you come before me, you've never been sad, but now you're sad, and this can only be sadness of heart. And he says, I was very much afraid, but I said to the king, may the king live forever. Why should my face not look sad when the city where my fathers are buried lies in ruins, and its gates have been destroyed by fire? The king said to me, what is it you want? Then I prayed to the God of heaven, and I answered the king. If it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in his sight, let him send me to the city in Judah where my fathers are buried, so that I can rebuild it. Then the king, with the queen sitting beside him, asked me, how long will your journey take, and when will you get back? And it pleased the king to send me, so I set a time. So Nehemiah gets this vision for rebuilding Jerusalem. And in this vision now, he begins to carry it out, and he asks the king for letters so that he can have safety in the travel, and he has soldiers, and he can have timber to rebuild the walls, and permission, and laborers, and so forth. And the king gives him everything he wants, and he goes into Jerusalem, and he shares, but he doesn't share this vision first. He goes and he looks at the city, and he comes up with a plan, and then he goes to the people in chapter 2 and verse 17. He said to them, you see the trouble we're in? Jerusalem lies in ruins, and its gates have been burned with fire. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, and we will no longer be in disgrace. And so he shares this vision with the people that we're going to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. And so we have Nehemiah here. He's seen the problem of Jerusalem. And he's touched to the heart because of the problem, the need that's there. And he gets his vision for rebuilding the walls, and he prays about it. And he sees the value that's there. And he begins to strategize, and he comes up with a plan, and he shares that with other people, and he can see those walls being rebuilt. He can see the city coming back to the time of its former glory. He can see the vision, and he's sharing that vision with other people. Can you see this vision of these walls being rebuilt? And what that's going to do, then it's going to change what the people do. And you read the rest of the Nehemiah, and it's going to talk about the people. And what are they doing? They're not doing all these other things over here, even though they're good and wonderful. Their focus now is on the rebuilding of the walls of Jerusalem. And in doing so, makes everything else something that they don't do. It defines who they are. Of course, when Nehemiah starts beginning to walk out this vision, what's the first thing that's going to happen? He's going to have people come against him. They're going to come against him and try to get him to stop that vision. Folks, whenever we have a godly vision and we set out to walk out that vision and to accomplish that, stopping doing other things that keep us from leading us to the vision, then we're going to have opposition come against us to try to stop us from accomplishing that vision. But Nehemiah wasn't going to be stopped because the power of God was behind him and the vision. Proverbs 29 and verse 18 says, it's in the King James Version, I love it. It says, without vision, or for the lack of a vision, the people perish. There is a desperate need for a vision. Vision for us as a community of faith. Vision demands a change. You look at the situation in Jerusalem, you see how the city lay in ruins, and this touched the heart of Nehemiah, and the people were depressed, and there was change that needed to take place. That's the whole idea of having a vision. We see something the way it is, and we can say to ourselves, this is how it could be. That is the vision over here, not how it is. There's so many people today who are occupied in focusing on how it is. And too many times I hear Christians caught up in being judgmental and critical about lost people. Folks, that's the city lying in ruins. That's how it is. But that's not how it has to be. I'm so glad that as some people looked at my life and they saw how I was messed up and lying in ruins, they didn't see me, especially my dear mother-in-law. I don't know why she ever let me move in with her and put up with me. I'll tell you why, because she had a vision for me as not how I was, but how I could be. And that's what we need to do. We need to be able to look out at our world, and yes, we need to see it and assess it for what it really is. That's why Nehemiah in chapter 2 went throughout the city and checked out the facts. Yeah, this place is a mess. It's broke down here, it's broke down here, it's broke down here. But that's not his focus. He could still see those walls. It demands change. Our vision demands change, and he's seeing it how it's going to be, not how it is right now. What it is and what it could be. Nehemiah saw it. He saw it repaired. He saw the wall complete. He saw it in its former glory. Anybody know Andy Stanley? Anybody ever hear his preaching and read his books? He's got a book out called Visioneering. And he says this. This is a quote from his book. I love this. Without God's vision, you may find yourself in the all too common position on looking back on a life that was given to accumulating green pieces of paper with pictures of dead presidents on them. Accumulating money or stuff is a vision of sorts, but it's the kind of vision that leaves men and women wondering if there was more, wondering what they could have done, should have done with their brief stay on this little ball of dirt.